Hi guys, Jeremy Ferry here with another video on mechanical tension. Today we're going to be talking about butts. I drag a wagon everywhere I go. My friends drag wagons everywhere they go. You can drag a wagon everywhere you go. The main thing here is making sure that you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what it works. When we talk about the glute, we need to talk about its main function in exercise. I shouldn't say function, I should say action. Its main action in exercise is going to be taking your hip, which is this guy, from flexion, meaning it's flexed or bent at the hip here, to extension, so straightening your leg. Any exercise we can do that does that is more than likely working our glute. So today we're going to talk about generating mechanical tension in a different sense than the bicep video, and that's in the sense of things that we can add load to. The glute is one of the strongest muscles in the body, and we want to take advantage of that by picking exercises that really challenge it. Barbell back squat, barbell RDL, and the leg press are the things that I'm going to show you. A couple of really common ones that I see are things like banded squat walks. So you'll squat, you'll have a band around your hip or femur here, and you'll step side to side, kind of looking like a crab on the beach. Again, it's just become really popular in fitness, which if you've done this, there's no shame in that. I've done it, my clients have done it. We thought it was cool at the time. We learned better, and now I'm here to show you better ways of doing things. The main takeaway from this is going to be we really want to focus on getting into hip flexion, into extension in almost everything that we do, and that's going to work our glute. There are exercises like hip thrusts, which will take us through the shortened range where we don't get much into hip flexion, we just focus on the hip extension. Those are viable options, but these three are probably where most of your gains and progress are going to happen at. So for high bar back squat, you want to make sure you set the rack to a place where you can actually put the bar in and take the bar out of the rack fairly easily. Don't be a person that you go to rack this and you've got to get up on your tippy toes and you accidentally screw around and drop the barbell. It's not a good thing. When I line my hands up, I typically just use the markings on the bar. Usually you'll see rings on the barbell, and I put the outside of my hand on the first inside ring on each side. I'll straighten my arms, and then that should make it to where when I step underneath, I'm directly dead center in the middle of this bar. We're going to place this bar in a high bar position, which is going to be on our upper trapezius here. It's not going to be on our neck. Think the top of your shoulders. Okay? We're going to pull our hips underneath of us, drop our ribs a little bit, and pull our elbows underneath of us. Keep your stomach tight. You're going to stand up like so. Step back just a little bit. If you're squatting, you should probably have the safeties on the rack. I don't have the safeties on the rack because I'll be showing you barbell RDL, and I don't plan on dropping this. So, anyway, as we're squatting, you're going to bend your knees, drive your knees forward, keep your hips in this neutral position, keep your stomach tight. We're going to try to drop into as much hip flexion as we can, and then push. Now, hip flexion, again, is the most important part of this squat for glute growth, but we also want to make sure we let our knees travel forward too. The main takeaway on this squat is going to be making sure that we don't anteriorly tilt our pelvis and send our butt to the back of the room. We want to keep ourselves in more of a neutral hip position. That's going to give us the best results out of this. So on the high bar back squat, fixing the hips is important. The next thing I'm going to show you is actually really akin to the high bar back squat. It is the leg press. This is not a move that beginners or people new to weightlifting should really try to send it on. There are a lot of factors at play that determine how good you're going to be at a high bar back squat. So for the most part, get really good at this movement, but don't focus on loading a lot of weight to it until you feel comfortable. We will go to a leg press for that. This leg press functions kind of like a hack squat, but it's going to allow us to get into plenty of hip flexion, and that's what we need. So when we're using machines, it's important to set up properly on a machine. So when I go to sit on this thing, I'm not just going to drape myself over it. I'm going to lift my shoulders up a little bit, and that's going to drop my ribs down, making sure I'm engaging my core. I'm going to grab these handles and rotate my elbows in to flex my lats, and that's going to provide more stability for my spine. I'll put my feet up here on the plate in the foot position that I want. Typically when I use this leg press, I go to the bottom of the plate with my foot position because it allows me to get into a deeper hip flexion. Okay? Keep your stomach tight. Keep your knees in alignment with your toes. Drop your hips as much, or go into hip flexion as much as you can, and then press. Your limiting factor for dropping this down is going to be how far you can go without lifting your hips up. If you lift your hips up on this, we're probably going too low, okay? Make sure you keep them down, you lock them in place. You'll see people bias their glutes, and you should never do what I'm doing, by the way. You should probably lock it and then move your feet. I'm just overly confident. You'll see people move their feet all the way up to the top of the plate. When they do this, what they're doing is they're decreasing the amount their quad is going to put into it, but what they're also doing is they're probably stopping themselves from going into as deep of hip flexion. If you can still go into deep hip flexion with your feet at the top, and you don't really want to work your quads at all, this is probably the foot position for you. If going this high means that you can't bring your knee back as far, then we probably want to go back to this foot position. Okay, last exercise of the day. It's going to be the barbell RDL. RDL stands for Romanian deadlift. No idea why it's called that. I'm sure there's some history there. I don't know it. But look it up. Google knows all. So when we use one of these barbells for RDL, what we're going to do is we're going to grip right outside of our hips in an overhand grip. I typically use a double overhand grip. Most people's grips aren't going to be the limiting factor on an RDL. If it is, you might want to think about a hook grip or using straps. You're going to pull your elbows in tight, and that's going to give you more stability through your spine. Feet are going to be hip width apart. Keep your stomach tight. Slight bend in the knee, and we're going to lock down movement at the knee as we hinge at the hips. So now we're going to push our hips back as far as we can, bending over at the waist, and we're going to come down as far as we can, hinging at the hips until we get to a point to where we can't go any further unless we bend at our back. That is the point where we'll call depth, like maximal depth for this exercise. And then you're going to stand up. Stomach tight, hips back, come to about as far as you can, getting good hip flexion, and then extend up. You'll feel this exercise through your hamstrings and your glutes, which is fine. Who doesn't want nice hamstrings? Just like so. Making sure while we're doing all three of these exercises that I showed you, we're keeping whole foot pressure. Meaning that we've got pressure through our heel, big toe, outside of our foot, all of our toes, down on the ground. We don't want to shift back and forth, right? Most people will probably have a tendency to shift to their toe. If you shift to your toe more, that is going to take tension more to your quad. We don't want to do that necessarily. Make sure you keep your whole foot planted. Hopefully this video helped you guys. I want you to take these takeaways, go do something with them, and keep in mind that getting anywhere in fitness takes time. It takes time. It takes effort over time. But if you stick with it, stay consistent, you're going to get somewhere with it, and you'll get a lot further than you think you will just through staying consistent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, and drop any comments below if you have any new videos that you want me to shoot or any questions about this one. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys.